Welcome to the Free and Open Mind Decount, where I'm Hardy Brooklyn.
And I'm Michelle Wild.
Where who are you?
And what is your true passion?
Today we'd like to thank our sponsors once again, FlowJuggle.com, providing all of your circus and party needs with light-up juggling, crazy stuff. I mean, we were a spectacle at the park last weekend. And ROI resumes. Make sure that you have that resume that gets to the top of the pile. For their URLs, check out the show notes, and you'll be able to click directly to their site. Thank you.
So today we have our first guest. You want to give us a little summary?
Sure.
Roland?
Our first guest is an old friend of mine, actually. We've been friends for years. He was actually born in the same city that I was born, New York City.
Ooh.
Except he became a trader and crossed the river and went over to New Jersey.
I had so much of a say of it at 4.
Oh.
He studied film and other stuff in high school and college. And did you actually get a degree?
So I actually, I keep thinking about that. When I graduated from college, it was at the behest of my family, because it was just like, okay, that's it. We needed to get out. And so I graduated with a liberal arts degree. But I remember that with a liberal arts degree that there was a certainty that it could be applied in any which way I so desired. Because
those were the days.
It was a degree.
Those were the days, though.
But the focus was always on film. It was a weird thing. I grew up in Teaneck, New Jersey. Yeah, Trader.
Oh, my mom was there.
Yeah, well, there you go. It's already a good place.
Nah.
No.
Teaneck was great. In fact, somebody just said to me that they found an article from 1994, 1995, and they, it was in Teaneck. They covered Teaneck, New Jersey, in this teen magazine, and it looked so, multicultural and so progressive. And I was like, really? This was like a couple days ago. Somebody mentioned that out of the blue. So it has left an indelible mark on a lot of people as a positive place. So I think it's a good start to signal the beginning of this immersion into film. With the start was in high school. But I think you want to talk a little bit about Artifications, or?
Well, I want to really talk about your passion and how art became your passion and how the whole creativity became your passion. And when in your life did you see that switch? Because you managed theaters, you started doing some kind of exhibits out of your apartment, you then moved to doing them in bigger venues. And I from what I know of you, aside from a singer-songwriter, you also do this amazing art project. And I think that's the connection to your passion. So when in your life did you realize that, I guess, curating or cultivating art, is that your passion?
Honestly, it's a very good question. But I want to thank you for framing the question, which is, how did you discover your passions that you maintained almost to this day? Well, honestly, not without a bit of a gap.
Right. Well, it's not a gap. It's your journey.
Well,
it's part of your journey. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
A lot of times, listen. A lot of times, a part of your journey is figuring out what you don't want to do. Or you're gathering skills that are going to help you do what you want to do.
I mean, I didn't know. I don't know why I wasn't thinking about film for 10 years. I don't know why. I guess it was because I was starting galleries in my apartment in Hoboken, and creating exhibitions, happenings, things, because I grew up in Teaneck, which was so progressive and awesome, and then we had a senior project which was to raise money for the homeless.
Oh.
That was it. You just put on a concert, raise money for the homeless, and it was so cool. It was so cool.
So, can I ask you a question? Why did you get a liberal arts degree? Why didn't you get a film degree in school?
Oh, because my parents were rushing me out of college. They were like, that's it. You got to get out. You got to start working.
Well, so they wanted you to start working?
Yeah.
Well, how did they expect you to start working without getting a degree that you wanted and something to do? Or they just didn't want to pay for it anymore? I
think that was exactly it. It was, and I can't blame them.
How many years was it that you did?
It was 4.
Oh, that's it?
Yes.
That's like...
And I'm not judging, I'm just asking, like, why didn't you say, let me pay for it myself, and I'll take myself to film school?
Because I was like, you know what? I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to motivate me to enter into the world. It's like, I can do this. It's no problem. And I think that they had a bit of an empty nest situation that they had coming on. And so, at the time, I did actually take on the finances of a postgraduate degree at the time. I didn't end up finishing the postgrad degree, but after I graduated, I did go back for more schooling.
Okay.
But
so you pretty much grew up in a family that is sort of money focused.
Oh, very much so, yeah.
Yeah.
And
you also they were trying to put you in a construct, like what your job and your career is and your life is now didn't really fit into any peg hole that existed in their playbook.
No, in fact, it was really a square peg round hole kind of situation all around.
Were they supportive though?
I remember I played hardcore music in 7th grade, 8th grade, and at my first concert, I remember I was like 12, 13, it was, and it was big, and we just opened up for like this big band, and I don't know, I just fell into it, and we got popular, and we played for a lot of really big acts. And I remember my parents came to one show. They were like, "Yeah, now our scene." Yeah, but it wasn't like, it was just an idea that the arts is something to be respected and adored and appreciated and supported. But
not what my son's going to be doing.
Not vocational. But later on, after they saw that it was an inflexible thing and that I would continue, creating opportunities for artists, they started seeing that there was no getting around the life of someone who wanted to support the arts in the way that I did. And so later in life, my father was like, you know what? I wish that that I'd taken you seriously, and that now I just want to know, what is it that you want to do, and what is the best of it? How can you be the best of it? And so that's what really fomented a lot of what Artifications ended up becoming. It took a 10-year transformative.
Well, let's explain to everybody what Artifications is, because they don't know.
Sure. Well, if you've seen it, and
there'll be a link in the show notes to check it out.
Artifications is a series of documentary short form, about 15 minutes apiece, that are constructed for travelers and artists alike who would like to preview a city before actually going there.
Oh.
Now, let's say that you're an artist and you want to enter into the Istanbul art scene, or let's say one that we work with. The last one that I put out was Denver, the River North Arts District versus the 40 West Arts District. 2 of 7 art districts ordained by the city of Denver. And you want to show your work in Denver. Well, this is a great resource that we have where people can tune into Artifications.us, find not just the video that goes into detail on the history of the location, but access points. So you can enter into this wonderful art scene of Denver that has its own attributes that you may or may not want to enter into based on who you are as an artist or a traveler. So we introduce you to the space and see if it's a good match. And if you're an artist and you want to enter, we are developing resources, access points. So people, places, and access to resources where you can enter into the economy. And that's what Artifications is, with like I said, a focus specifically on history.
So how long have you, as Artifications, been up and running?
December 2016.
Oh, it's been almost 4 years.
Wow. Yeah.
It's been fun years, hasn't it?
Oh my
Interesting times to start an art organization.
Well, I guess I needed to distract myself. it was fortuitous, that.
So, I mean, aside from the last 4 years of the world, what were some of the hurdles that you had to overcome to actually make this a reality?
They're endless, and still at the same time, it's fun as hell to push this big boulder up the side of a hill.
Yeah.
What I mean is that there were many hurdles that, first of all, I didn't know what I was doing, but I know what I wanted to do. And so I had to construct an identity, and then around that formulate the idea of what Artifications was. So I made it a long-form audio podcast. So that's 46 minutes of intense, between your head, history, long interviews, and I'm just sitting there editing it. And all the while, like, I was just getting lost in the production. So to evolve 4 years later, you've learned a multitude of lessons. First, art is visual. You get to see it. You gotta see it. You know, I can only tell you how colorful people are, but until you see them, you don't really get it. The other aspect is that when you do research for grant writing and all these other things that underpin the success or the perceived successes of projects, they propel you towards collaboration. And much of my focus was not on collaboration, it was on production and quality and consistency of message. And these things came up all the while I was learning to edit, because I had taken a 12-year break from the time I had graduated college and was filming the New York Giants practice, you know, to when I had stopped for 12 years and picked it up again, and I had to relearn how to edit.
You probably had to not even relearn. You had to probably start from scratch, because I'm sure there was lots of new software and stuff.
Yeah, the last thing I had worked on was just tape machines.
Oh,
But it's like, where there's a will, there's a way. And I remember people would shout me down, like friends, like they didn't get it. And it's just like, I will not hear that. It does not exist in this trajectory. And it's like, you're either behind me or you do not exist. Because this helped me as much as I give to it. So it's a therapy for me. But you asked something very important that I don't want to miss. You asked, how do I balance that with the idea of being a creative? For example, I'm a musician. You know me as a musician.
Mostly, yeah.
Me too, I do.
Yeah.
Also.
And most people know me as a musician, or they know me as the other. As an entity, I know that I can't focus on one thing for too long before I say I have to shift and focus on something else consciously and do that for a certain duration of time. But it's through just diligence and getting to know who I am and what I'm capable of doing and goal setting. But also, I think that I'm just not good at being unorganized.
No, that's not a bad quality. I just heard somebody say the other day, it's don't do something you're good at, do something you're passionate about, and then you'll become good at it. So that's, I mean, point in case, right? Like, you have some passion, but, you know, I hear your passion is art, but then there's the whole underlying thing of what your purpose is, and your purpose seems to, like, help people showcase their art and live their art dream and be able to pursue that as a career.
Or understand art.
Yeah, or understand art, yeah. Is that what your purpose is?
What do you think your purpose is?
Well, I think you hit on something really important. It's that giving yourself the opportunity to, or allowing yourself to suck at something, to get better at something.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, I was a photographer. I sucked when I first started, too. I mean, that's part of the journey.
Right, but
just like these VCasts, if
you see the first
everyone.
It's a journey. It's a process.
No.
And you want to enjoy the journey.
Yes.
This is what it is. This is it right here, right?
Well, how do you do that? How does one do that? How do you keep it fresh? You know, I think what's important is just a spiritual connection. I think is important. Some kind of always being grounded. Like, what does that even mean? Like, I have certain spiritual visualizations that I do to help me focus. They're all chakra based. The last album that I just put out last week was all chakra based. over time, I found this worked for me in the past 4 years, and it came from a really funny situation. Just when I had started this podcast, I was really trying to focus on generating income, so I manifested the idea of green energy, a green chakra, ball of energy, and I reinforced it. And then 4 months later, I checked in with my partner. I said, I've been doing this green ball of energy thing for 4 months, and I haven't seen a dime. What am I doing wrong? Turns out, they said, no, your green chakra is not for abundance and money. It's your root chakra. And even then, it doesn't exist on its own. You have to have a fully balanced system to derive any kind of benefits or focus from them. So, with that, the repeated focus on the energies and the colors together really propelled me in terms of finding a balance, in at least myself, where I can approach anything else.
Right.
And
so I want to ask you, so how do you make money and support yourself?
Well, before the COVID-19, I did what anybody in New York does.
Hustled.
Yes, but the hustle was organized, where I
Of
taught.
course.
I taught with many schools all over Brooklyn and
What did
New
you
York
teach?
City. I taught music,
Sweet.
and I also did a lot of professional, like these large conferences in New York with these gigantic AV systems. I would be called upon to set them up and get everything ready with a group of other people, put up the lights with the harnesses. But unfortunately, all that is closed right now. And so how am I doing it right now? Well, I am making music. I actually have
making, is that your
So
only
you have an album
income?
that just came out.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay,
that's
so
what I
you
mean.
sell it online,
Yeah.
and that's your only income.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not trying to
crazy.
be like nosy or anything. It's just for like one of the things we talk about a lot, because people are always afraid to make a change because of money.
Mhm.
Right? That's the big factor, I think.
Oh yeah.
Like I don't want to leave my cushy job even though I fucking hate it, to pursue my, my real passion because I'm making so much money.
Well, it's not just that. There is a lot of hustling. There's a lot of writing to be done. But honestly, the whole fucking world has changed.
Yeah.
What it has done was I am not living beyond the means that I provided myself years before I got into this.
Okay.
Before I started Artifications, I knew that I would be traveling a substantial amount of time, and that I could not function like at a certain. I had to live at a certain means in order to accommodate my lifestyle.
Right.
So I have successfully maintained those means even till now, and it's difficult. But what that means is that I lead a small life, but I lead large in experiences, and in those experiences I document them for Artifications, or I use them as opportunities to tour and play music like we did earlier in 2020.
So that's a really important point. So what he's saying is that he lives a small life as far as conventional society is concerned, with as far as what he owns, what he possesses, his footprint on the earth. But his life is so much richer and fuller because he's living the life of experiences that he wants to live and have, and he's actually enjoying himself instead of enjoying possessions.
Right.
Sums it up.
Yeah. And sharing the experiences with other people. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's part of your whole, purpose.
It is. It's very distinct to create a documentary series like I do, so it's important to pack as much information into a small amount of time as possible. And it's all about empowering others. A lot of the spiritual work that we do is not about making it about yourself, but about what we can do to help others.
Mm-hmm.
So long as try to keep that mentality and make quality work in whatever I do, then the path will unfold. So long as I, believe in it.
Right.
So how would you convey that to anybody that's watching this podcast, that it's safe to make the switch and do what you believe in?
The switch. It's funny. In the most recent article that I had sent you, the last line was a quote from that I had given them, saying that regarding the chakra work and about working on ourselves, that we have to confront the fear. The fear is a veil,
and ask yourself, what is it that you're scared of?
What is it that time and time again that you come back to, and
right.
is kind of unresolved, and what lies on the other side of that? That's a note. That's a quick note.
Right.
If you see it coming up again, that's a note. That's not going away.
Right.
At least not this lifetime. You're going to have to deal with it at some point in time. But the facing of that veil, it's actually just on the other side of that fear that you look back and you realize that you kind of put the illusion of that fear in front of you. And it's something that I watch unfold all the time.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we all do. We all do.
Yeah, I'm looking at you guys thinking that.
Right.
Just the evidence is the fact that you're making this program and you're talking about these paths.
Right.
What have you found through your interviews?
Your first interview.
Well, I know that you've had these discussions before. And what are you trying to bring to light through these discussions?
That it's okay to take the risk. It's okay that fear that's created for you not to do your passion, not to do your purpose, not to do your true self. Mm-hmm. All of those things are fears created by other entities that want to control you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the people that make the switch and live that different lifestyle always are happier, whether it's a tiny home lifestyle. I mean, the amount of people that I've been, during COVID, I've watched a whole bunch of things about like crazy homes that people have created over time to go off grid, and all of those people seem so much happier to me because they're not living a life of construct. And you don't live a life of construct. The life that when we interact, when people from the outside world look at us, they're like, ooh, right?
They're not having as much fun as we are.
No.
But that's a really good statement. He said they're not having as much fun as we are. And that's really important because we're having fun. I don't own a great mansion, but we have a great time.
And it's about that constant state of, look, one of the last pieces that I wrote talks about this specific piece. I wrestled with the idea of what is the point of life? Like, why are you getting up in the morning? Like, what's going on? What's the point? Why am I putting these shoes on? Well, and I found the answer most suitably when I was in Mumbai in February, tied to cymatics. Now, if you don't know what cymatics are, if you have a certain frequency and you put it on a speaker and you put a sheet of paper over it, you drop sand, it'll organize itself.
Right.
By the frequency you pitch, by your frequency you change, it will organize itself into different structures. Taken to be three-dimensionally speaking, it happens that this occurs with all frequencies. What the difference is the intention of what you're doing with that frequency. I'm taking that for my next comment, is that from our heart, we have a beat that constantly happens, and we don't even pay attention to, but you feel it from time to time. That is an electromagnetic pulse that begins from nowhere in the deep recesses of your heart. And the frequency with which it begins or ends translates to the way that your cells divide later on. Now, I'm not going to say that this is just something I'm espousing. I say that there's Dan Winter is the authority on this. There's a lot of knowledge behind it to support this. What it does is it refocuses your intention behind every heartbeat. Is it one that's being celebrated with something of a positive nature, or are you hurting your cells in the long run as they divide? And the evidence behind that always comes back to joy. You have to live in a positive way because that's all that exists is the now. And the timestamp in our DNA will say, did this person in totality live a life of joy, or did they live one of fear?
So if you could give one bit of advice to somebody that's on the fence about making a change, what would you give them to change to following their true passion?
On the fence, I'm a little bit of I like to challenge people, and I unfortunately would have to ask them, do you take yourself seriously? Do you take yourself seriously? Because there's always this juxtaposition of seriously, and you can't take yourself too seriously.
Right.
Well, what side of the coin are you on? And but that's how it unfurls with them, isn't it? That's their path.
Yeah.
So do you take yourself seriously enough to do it?
So just we're about ready to wrap up, but I want to ask, because of COVID going on right now, what was it like to go cross country and actually interview people during COVID times and stay safe?
You know, I'll tell you that this is the time of testing, so you know, all testing has come back negative, which is great thus far. It's a scary prospect to look these people in the face when they just opened their galleries up in Chicago and Seattle and in Kansas City and be like, hey, how are you doing it? You know, every place has their own different story. For example, I loved that in Seattle there was one gallery who said, you know what, we're not going to let this stop us. We're going to organize ourselves, and we're going to have as many places that can be open, we'll have them open. As many places that be digital, will be digital. And they ended up making a tremendous hybrid festival that I remember at the time was sticking out as like the thing that was happening in the United States. And but then you have places like Chicago. They're just opening up piecemeal. They're still trying to figure out how many people they can even have in a gallery. So they're not necessarily organized on the larger scale. But then again, it's even relegated to neighborhoods. So I have to like find out in this district, can I talk to somebody district or that district? What's going on? The shape of it right now is that there's fear and excitement, because the one thing they all know is that galleries are big white spaces that have a lot of room.
So we want to thank you for being on.
Thank you.
That was lovely.
So again, he's just to let you know, Roland had his current residency with Prototype in Paterson, New Jersey. What's that about?
Paterson, New Jersey is now the home of the Prototype Arts Facility. 660 Grand Street was in Jersey City, and it existed there for about 15 great years. Now, they were written up in the New York Times and had a tremendous amount of great talented artists come through that space. And what happened is they closed up, and the heart of it moved to Paterson, and they just built this beautiful, like, you know, thousands and thousands square facility with spaces for artists to stay, to be social distant, but at the same time be creative. And while the construction's going on, they've allowed me to go in there and do my residency, which is basically, like I said, I focus on video, and then I focus on music. I just released 8 15-minute documentaries in 2020. That's a tremendous amount of hours in editing.
Yeah, it is.
And in order to get out of that mindset, I pivoted to music, and I went hard. I spent 5 days producing as much music as I could, forcing myself to weave the songs together in a way that was a bit astringent, but that I knew would purge a bit of what needed to happen. So I'm working with them right now for the next month to create a series of videos to go with these 12 songs that were created during the time.
And then your record, Lost and Found, was released on Bandcamp?
Yeah. Check this out. I just raised a lot of money to fix a broken guitar. And with that money, I raised more than I needed. And I got a beautiful guitar, and I had promised everybody who had given money towards this that I would put out an album as soon as I could with the guitar that was paid for. This was the result of it. Originally, I had released it in December of 2018. And in Hudson County, you know, the Hudson County, Jersey City, Hoboken area, it was listed as one of the top 10 albums for 2018. Wow. And it came out in December. So I was like, well, this is cool. I had the chance to do it again with the money that was raised from the guitar. I took it, put it towards the studio, great place in Clifton, New Jersey, back in Jersey. Mm-hmm. And it just came out last week, and it's been so well received. One of our friends here in Brooklyn, Gravity, Queen of Love and Hope, is actually doing the background vocals on it, and she sounds phenomenal. Yeah, so I'm just thankful.
Thank you for coming. Hopefully you'll be a little bit of an inspiration to others that are on the fence, maybe deciding whether they want to make their move to their full passion or to live life more happier and more
authentically,
and not what people have kind of constructed, more like life was back in the old days. Way back. I am Hardy Brooklyn.
I'm Michelle Wild.
We'd like to thank Flo Juggle flowjuggle.com for all your light-up juggling needs, and ROI Resumes to get your resume to the top of the pile. You can check us out in the show notes. The show notes will also include links to how to contact Roland Ramos, Artifications, his new album, as well as how to get into I can't even say it. Patterson, New Jersey.